This is WeBurlesque.
Hi, this is Hottie Hazelnut.
Hi, this is Mika Romantic.
Hi, this is Professor M.
Hi there, this is Sasha A. Baumfox.
This is Maki Roll, the doll-faced gremlin, and you're listening to WEBurlesque Season 10.
This is the WeBurlesque podcast, and I'm your host, Viktor Devonne. And through the miracle of fiber optics, I get to talk to nightlife individuals in the field of drag, burlesque, and cabaret. And today is no exception. I get to talk to Poundcake today. Hello, hello. I was going to say Yo King Poundcake. That is a lot of your social stuff. Is that part of the branding usually?
It's not. It's actually it's my location, what I am, and my name. So Youngstown, Ohio,
Look at that.
is colloquially the yo.
Okay.
And it's also like yo like hi. So I guess there's that.
Yes.
And then I'm a king, and then pound cake.
Wow. Where did such a moniker as Poundcake come from?
So it was actually it was someone's sign off on a missed connections on a Craigslist post. And it was a very sweet post about a guy seeing a girl that he liked that was in a college class with him, and he saw her like at the grocery store and he didn't want to approach her and be rude. And he was like, I've always admired you. I think you're beautiful, and I'd love to take you out for coffee sometime. I think you were with your grandma. And then he said, if you'd like to do that, I would love if you reach out to me. And he signed it yours, Pound Cake.
That's beautiful. And that just
Yeah, and
that just resonated with you?
when I started doing drag, which was 20 years ago this year,
Congratulations.
right. I'm still here somehow.
Listen, no one knew, no one said, no one made any promises, but I'm right there with you.
Right. But yeah, when I started, it was very common for drag king persons to be like machismo and like douchebaggery, just like that whole like taking that toxic masculinity and turning it into the character. And when I started, I said, I don't want to be that. I want to always be a gentleman first. And so, even though the character has warped over the years and Poundcake is really like an undead demon clown monster, he's always a gentleman first.
That's lovely. Yes, that does seem to be a situation. A lot of times, I guess it's you go dandy or douche. A lot of times when it comes to amplifying masculinity, and you know what? It's a fair judgment when it comes to deconstructing, particularly what is expected and is amplified by cisgender men specifically, often in media or performative toxic masculinity, because usually, in my estimation, a lot of bullies tend to be pretty soft and weak when you really push them. So it's all just masquerade anyway, but it's sort of expected, and I found that to be a fascinating but sort of off-putting comment. Most of my early drag king interactions were in the Brooklyn scene, when I was working in New York. And so there was Switch and Play, which is works a lot with House of Velour. And I was with them during a pretty transitional time when a lot of members were coming and going. And now they are a lot more varied in presentation. I remember sort of referring to them as like the boy band of drag kings at one point, and they were a very different. They were sort of like the boys to men soft boy band as opposed to like an aggressive. And I always found that really fascinating, that they were sort of like the outsiders of that, because so many people when they were engaging in that, even just for fun, where there are a lot of burlesque girls who sometimes put on a drag king act, and they get swagger, but they're also sleazy. And I find that to be a double-edged sword because it sort of perpetuates at the same time as it critiques. Thoughts?
Honestly, that's you hit it exactly. Like
Mm.
as somebody who when I started out, I guess my gender was kind of like, yeah, sure, that's there, but let's not talk about that
Mm.
very
Hmm.
much. And when I like landed on, okay, I'm really gonna do this thing and it's not just for fun, um, I noticed in myself that like my interaction with kings like that was I was very averse to it
Mm.
because I was not able to, I guess they were just so good at the act that it was hard for me to separate the person from that character,
Right.
and it made it difficult for me to interact with my peers. And then once I was able to be like, oh, there's all this stuff going on a side quest in your brain, then I was able to kind of be like, no, like, you know how you're not the person that is on stage? It's the same thing.
Right. Right. And sometimes, I mean, and that's a lot of times though, oh, it's a character as a defense or as a reason, or as a reason. I don't want to say as an excuse, but as a reason. Yeah, but I don't necessarily want to hang out with that character sometimes. And I remember this criticism comes up a lot when you see uh drag race, when it has, like such a microcosm of editing, and everything is sort of truncated to such a degree where it's all just sort of fake at that point. It kind of has to be. And I'll be like, how are you judging somebody for this? We're like, yeah, true. I don't like how they're behaving. And there's I understand, like there's sort of like a an expectation also. There's like sort of commentary of like, well, drag queens are allowed to be bitchy, allowed to be, you know, like reading is fun. I'm like, yes. However, it comes to a point. It comes to a point. Um, and I think so much of that again is performative, and then we get to a point where it's exploitative.
Yes.
And then we have another situation where like the dragon is eating its own tail, where you basically traumatize the fuck out of Laganja Estranja, but then you use her sayings for the rest of the season. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Yeah,
not saying she
like
didn't contribute, but I
right.
mean, it just seems,
But
yeah.
yeah, I definitely have said like in terms of like drag queens and whatnot, like it's interesting to me that like you put on that makeup, you put on the wig, you put on the body,
Mm,
and drag is exaggerated gender. We can't divorce that,
hmm.
so you're putting all of that on, and suddenly you've become, quote unquote, the bitch. But
Hmm.
like, is that how you see women?
Hmm.
And
Mm,
that's the same question I would ask for kings too. Like, is that how you see men? And how much of that is informed through your interactions? How much is
right.
assumptive? How much is how much you've been treated?
Mm,
You're turning it on its head. But like you said, is it also somehow perpetuating that?
hmm. It's also
And
it's exhausting
yes,
to behave that way. So you're
right.
gonna burn out real quick.
Hmm.
Well, so you indicated that when you began your king journey, you didn't necessarily know everything about yourself. Would you say that
Absolutely not.
you were more interested in the theatricality rather than exploring what gender really was?
I guess maybe because I was so like in a place of literally being like a fish out of water because I like had just graduated high school and gone straight to college. Um, and I had my school didn't have a lot of boys that wanted to do theater when I was in high school, so I ended up in a lot of drag roles in high school.
Mm.
And so it
How
just kind of
Shakespearean.
naturally, yeah, right. It just kind of naturally progressed too. It was like, oh, well, yeah, this is just something I like to do for fun. And then it started to be like, am I telling myself this? Like, that's so interesting. I just had a show in Pittsburgh this last weekend, and I was looking in the mirror and I was saying like I remember putting on drag and then being like, the gig is over. It's been like an hour after the gig. Everyone else is de-dragged and I'm still in drag. And I'm sitting there looking at myself and I'm just like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if I stayed like this, you guys? It'd be such a funny joke. Ha ha ha, a joke. It's not real. And then like, oh, what if for April Fools? And then it's like pound cake, it's June. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I definitely did not know, and I still don't, but like I I want to say it took me probably a good like 5 or 6 months for me to be like, oh, this is something I could do.
Mm. Hmm.
And it took another drag king who ended up being my father. He just looked at me the one day and he was like, "Are you trans?" Just point blank. And I was like, no, 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 that's not a thing. And he was like, okay, come back to me in a year. And I did. And he was like, uh-huh, I know.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about it.
Sometimes the forest, you get stuck behind the trees. Yeah, sometimes I
Yep.
understand. I understand. Well, also, you're talking about 20 years ago as well. And so that is a different time, as scary as that is, to consider. People who were born 20 years ago, will be able to, drink this year. And I'm right there with you. So I was born in 83. So I grew up at a time where most of my introductions to homosexuality even were under the auspices of it's or relegated to a lot of very specific uh, terminology that we don't necessarily use today. Um, and so to have that foresight at that time when, again, let's see what that 20 years ago is 2006.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I was just starting burlesque as well. I started burlesque in September of 2006, but I was doing Rocky Horror. And Rocky Horror is an interesting thing when it comes to
Whole different thing. Yep.
gender exploration, yes. And it true even for Richard O'Brien, because Richard has learned a lot about himself as well.
Mhm.
Uh it's such a complicated thing. And then you get into the cast aspect of that. And I have to say my experience in Rocky was very molded by heterosexual men and bisexual women. There wasn't a lot of uh gay representation in the cast, except me, for a long time. So and then that adjusted
Yeah.
as the show went on. But it was it was pretty much, wouldn't it be funny to dress like girls?
Yeah.
Mentality for a
Yes,
lot of folks.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just so we're clear, I don't identify as trans or even specifically non-binary, but I'm something. There's something there that's not quite at a 1 or a 10, depending. So I've
Secret
always,
thing.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And so I don't mind the word man or guy or boy or anything like that. And I think part of the reason I don't is because I want to personally expand on what that is. I don't want, I think what it is that I don't want to necessarily not identify as a man because I don't want people to think that you can't be like I am and that not be a man. Does that make sense?
That's exactly how I describe myself, so that makes sense.
Oh, there you go. So who's to say? So I consider gender to be sort of wibbly wobbly, and as someone who uh has a lot of wardrobe from both sides of the aisle as well, but doesn't necessarily get so I again growing up with sort of transvesticism as a concept within
Mhm.
gender expression. Um, while I can certainly find gentlemen in lingerie and hot, certainly, it still does depend on the gentleman. It doesn't depend on the lingerie. So I don't know if I would even say that that's really the vibe. But
Yeah.
it's all very I don't know. I should be in therapy and I should also probably just spend more time thinking about it. But instead I do shows. And I paint myself
Well,
clowny and call it a day.
that's its own kind of therapy.
It is, but it's totally irresponsible. It's totally irresponsible
Yes,
to
but you know, irresponsible, schmirresponsible in this day and age. We could all just put a little more mascara on, correct?
certainly a little mascara, a little Aquatifol. Well, so you mentioned that not knowing necessarily what the vibe was 20 years ago. What type of drag king did you start as? And what evolution may there have been thereafter? Or were you
So
always a demon?
well, um, I think I was always leaning toward um spooky in
Mm,
the terms of like it's so interesting to watch my evolution in terms of makeup even. I always say it's I traveled the gender cosmos to be okay with wearing makeup.
mm,
Like it took an entire transition for me to be like, oh yeah, we could paint some stuff on our face.
uh-huh.
um but I started out in a scene where it was either like you either did hip hop and you had a dance background, or you did like rock or emo music or punk music, um and you did like a little heavy guy liner.
Yes.
And
Gerard
and
Way. Yeah.
that was where I was for quite a bit, quite a few years. And I remember being like very very old school because again, I was brought up by someone who was a very old school drag king with like we're putting on binding or we're taping our chest down, we're putting on facial hair always. Like there was no choice to be a clean shaven king. um
Mm, hmm.
because it was at the time when people were still saying male illusion
Sure.
and female illusion over everything else, or impersonation.
Hmm.
um and at first it was the allure of fooling my own mother with a picture of myself, and she was like, who's that? And I was like, oh, that's me. She was like, oh wow, this is a new theater thing. And I'm like, yes, that's it.
Yes.
Theater. But yeah, and I was always told never to sing live, because that would ruin the illusion. um
Were you more soprano at one point?
so I had a contralto kind of like vocal range. I had a really high belt,
Mm,
and then I had a lot of really low notes. Like in high school I was the tenor section leader
okay.
in choir, and there were only like five guys in the choir altogether. So
Wow. Yeah, I guess actually I don't know. Uh, I talk to singers all the time on this pod, but it doesn't stick. when we talk about vocal range, that is often straight up gender, right? And
Yeah, it unfortunately, yes.
and
But
therefore even some words are used sort of backwards, depending, right?
yeah, so I
Okay.
guess to give you like an easy place to put my range used to be,
Hmm.
if we're thinking in terms of
Give me a song.
if we're yeah, if we're thinking in terms of like Rent, for
Okay,
example. So in my repertoire would have been anything that Joanne could sing.
great.
So anything from that high solo in Seasons of Love
Uh-huh.
all the way down to the lower parts of her range was what mine was.
Wow.
But I could also sing anything that Mark could sing. So I
Okay.
had those low notes, but
You could
also
do a
those
Tango Marino by
highs.
yourself.
Exactly. And now I did Rent a couple years ago and I played Collins.
Fabulous.
So like my range just kind of took a trip to hell.
Well, yeah. Well, depending on, it's funny you mentioned Rent because obviously that is also a generational touchstone for a lot of folks, and it also is a
Yep.
major relationship for a lot of queer folks as well.
Yep.
Um, I saw that recently. So my husband is in academia, so we he works at one of the colleges here, and so I we went to see Rent to see actual 19-year-olds and what early 20s play those roles was so devastating. I have to say it
Yeah.
was so um because while I was aware of Rent in the late 90s, I didn't see it until probably 2001, 2002.
Same.
um and you know, Broadway, everyone's in their 30s basically anyway. So when the
Right.
movie came
Right.
out, everyone was sort of like, "Oh, it's so weird," and I'm like, "I guess." Um, but yeah, it was so startling, and that was recently. So I was like, "Damn, damn," and that was really interesting too because while it wasn't quote colorblind casting, it was I believe a trans man playing Collins, a white trans man actually playing Collins. And Angel was still um Latino, and a few of the others that needed to be what they were. But it was interesting to sort of see the youth and how that show
Right.
resonates with them. Yeah. Damn. Speaking of things that are, 20 and 30 years old at this
Right.
point.
Oh God.
So when you were starting to feel that you were able to take on more of your own self-identity in drag, what looks did you then gravitate to?
So I've always been more drawn to I always say that I like my men effeminate.
Mm,
And that and I'm talking about just plain mannerisms.
hmm.
Like I love anything that like subverts what you would expect, right? So
Mm,
I've always been drawn to like David Bowie and
sure.
like Lenny Kravitz even like
Sure.
that like Jimi Hendrix like any of those sort of men and then like so of course like Billy Porter is like a dream come true
Mm,
like just that whole like yeah I could read you for filth. I could also be the most kind and loving man that you ever saw Grace the stage,
yeah.
and I like the idea that someone might look at me and think one thing and then like it could be something as simple as the way I flick my wrist or the way I turn my head or something that just makes them go, "Oh wait."
Oh.
And like kind of my one friend just said the other day that she wanted to have a show that I would host that would just be called Gay Panic.
Uh-huh.
And that would be the theme of the show because she's like, I just don't know. Like, I'm a lesbian, but like the panic. And I'm
The
like, oh,
panic.
thank you. Thank you. Because I always say like I am a man in the same way that a tomato is a fruit. Or
Certainly.
like man with nail emojis. Like like
Yes. Poundcake, you and I are simpatico. I just
we are.
knew. I get it. You know what it is? It's sort of like that Kiki Palmer gif. Like, oof, this one's got a little sweetness to it. It's just a little. Oh, I think your audio dropped.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
there you
turn
go.
it off for 1 second
Oh, sure.
because my dogs are getting
Oh,
fed and they will scream.
oh, they're puppies.
Oh, good. They were actually quiet. That's so weird.
Oh. Dogs at home. What are the dogs? Tell the folks at home.
So we have numero uno, who is an 18-year-old Chihuahua Papillon mix, and
Oh my
his
goodness.
son, Wicket of Willow Wick, who is a 14-year-old Papillon Chihuahua mix.
Goodness gracious. Oh.
Yeah, we live in Shady Pines.
Um, so yes, no, I get it. I get it that the fancy craze of it all, essentially. But I absolutely agree. I find that to be very charming. Like I understand sort of the uh it is interesting when we see because we're sort of experiencing this yet again with something like Heated Rivalry, where it's sort of like a heterosexual woman gaze on queer media being amplified. And that happens all the time, certainly. Um, there was I remember way back there being a that there were more women who were watching Queer as Folk that I knew than other gay men who were watching Queer as Folk. And some of that is also because a lot of gay media is very focused on hiring very pretty men and soft. And while sometimes and often they're dicks as well, like, and I mean that in a they're kind of douchey as well. They have an approachability, maybe. They're not, it's easier, I guess, to see that rather than, someone who looks like the brawny man
Right.
being a douche, unless that you're going to a drag show.
Right. Unless you're into that, I guess. But yeah, and that's the other thing, like I was never able to visualize what I would actually look like post transition.
Mm,
Um so like I find it really funny and I say it all the time that like when I look at older pictures, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I actually predicted what I would look like. I just have a longer beard." Like
that you don't have to paint on too, or affix, right? So
exactly.
this is full time.
Right? I just put some makeup in it, other than that, it's
So
fine.
I have to admit I don't know a whole lot about the specifics, but would you say as someone who began their transition 20 years ago that a lot of the medication or what have you is roughly the same as what folks are using today? Or have you had to adjust your um cocktail?
Honestly, so I started, oh gosh, hold on, it's March. So
Hmm.
I started testosterone 15 years ago, this 16 years ago this year,
Okay.
in March. And I am on the same exact um testosterone that I
Regiment?
was on,
Hmm.
but um I switched how I take it, and the dosage has gone down significantly. Um, and that just happens with basically my dosage is like a maintenance dose,
Hmm.
just to maintain my levels.
Sure.
But I've been really slacking on that, so we're fixing them now.
Mm.
And then I'm also on a very, very low dose of estrogen because I've had a hysterectomy. So
Oh, okay.
still need those, unfortunately.
Sure.
Still need the estrogen. So I always
We
said
contain
that was funny.
multitudes,
Like,
you know.
yeah. exactly. I always say that we contain multitudes, and it's multitudes of testosterone with just a sprinkle of estrogen.
Sure. It's just a dash. Well, we're obviously at a point where gender affirming care is a hot button politicized issue. I don't know how Ohio is handling a lot of that. Is there a lot of discussion right now about um fucking with people from the government side of things right now?
Oh yeah, it's always
Yeah.
been an issue. Even down to the fact that like you can't change your birth certificate. You've never been
Mm.
able to. Ohio said, no, that's not a thing. But I was born in DC, so the rules are a little different. So like
Hmm.
when I do decide to get my shit together, whatever that is, I'll report back. But
Responsible, sure,
yeah,
possible.
right. there there are like I did have like to get the federal ID um last year so I could fly,
Mm.
and I was a little nervous. They did try to push back a little bit on my paperwork, and it was like they had to call Columbus, and Columbus told the woman that like no, like his gender marker has been changed already, so like it's valid. And she was like, well, it doesn't match the documentation. And they're like, okay, the documentation is a birth certificate, but we also have a court mandated name change that now everything matches. So like
Hmm.
just do it.
Yeah.
Like so it seems more like they keep threatening, and they keep doing like we're going to take away the care for anyone that's a youth, and then they start floating or anyone,
Yeah.
and it's like that's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because it's actually not about kids, obviously. And even if it was
Never
about
has been.
kids, it's more complicated than that, even if it was.
Right.
Yeah, what a mess. And I know that as of the time of this recording, so we're recording this on the 1st of March, there's been developments, I believe, in Kansas regarding
Yep.
driver's licenses, and a lot of it they're hoping that you won't fight them on. They're hoping, and I say they, the amorphous, scary Skeksis in charge.
Yep.
They're hoping that you won't challenge it and that you'll just agree and comply and just go ahead. Which just sounds like what they were trying to do with you. They were like, it doesn't match, so you're gonna give up, right? That would be easier for us if you just didn't keep doing it. Um, what a fucking mess. What a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And I say that in a relatively, it's viewed as something as a haven, the California, just as it was when I was in uh, the tri-state area, New Jersey and New York. New Jersey, however, had Republican governors most of my youth. We had Whitman, who eventually was on the Bush administration group. So it's all, although that's almost nostalgic at this point, thinking
Right.
back on
Ugh.
the.
I literally said the other day to my coworker, I said, if you tell anyone I said this, I was like, is it sad that I kind of miss W? Like, not that I miss him as a person, but I
No.
miss almost the wholesome way that he was very charismatic
Yeah. Yeah.
as compared to, what else I had, to compare it to. Um,
Well, he
but
didn't act like a mob boss, for one thing.
yes.
He almost acted like a child. And it was
Yes.
Cheney who everyone was like, oh God. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a time.
Uh,
What a time. Hey, this is Viktor Devonne, and I like socks. I've always been very open about my appreciation for the fabric that goes on my feet, and I want you to enjoy them too. Please go to footclothes.com, look at the variety of fabulous novelty socks that do not suck, and indulge.
You can get 10% off now with the name Viktor Devonne as a promo code. That's VIKTORDEVONNE. Put it all together, no spaces, and enjoy.
Tonight on Murder, She Wrote.
Hooray!
Hey.
Yeah.
It's kind of Piper Laurie and Brenda Vaccaro at A Love Child.
Thank goodness.
I want to know
These
her.
nails. Yeah, where's her series? That's what
She's
I want.
fabulous.
The son is Joaquin Phoenix.
I know, isn't that nuts? And he is an ugly little kid. I'm sorry.
We're just like, hey, remember when this guy was in this obscure Broadway show in 1976?
Right? Look at him in those tight pants. Yum.
Well, because there's not
But
a
we
lot
do
really
get-
going on. It's
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're listening to the dialogue, which frankly, audience at home, you can do without us. We're just
Yeah, do
learning
your own
about
work,
some of these
damn it.
backstory. But
Right.
Boswell put her up to it.
Yeah.
And then Trish had to be killed because she realized that Boswell didn't have her interests at heart because Teddy was the inheritor.
Yeah.
Playing her like a fiddle.
Oswell knew it, and Trish just gulped it down like one of those martinis.
And then tossed it onto the lawn.
And then lost her head. Poor Trish.
Trish loses her head. This is Viktor Devonne.
And this is Petra Fried.
And this is Tonight
on Murder, She Wrote.
Are you looking for a show where the glamour is real and the stories are juicy? Learning about history is fascinating, especially when it's all glitter and glam.
Join May, December, and me, Iona Fortune, for Let's Burlesque, where every episode dives into the dazzling world of burlesque legends, scandals, and stardom.
You can find us twirling it on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. And check out even more backstage goodies on our blog at letsburlesquepodcast.wordpress.com.
Because talking about burlesque history keeps the tassels spinning.
You can find Let's Burlesque Podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Papa Pasty.
As an entertainer, as Nina Simone said, it is the artist's responsibility to reflect the times. How do you feel, if at all, that your drag or your performance, your burlesque, affects the times? Do you comment on it outside of just being a political body because they've made your body political?
Right. Honestly, I try to do as much comedy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that Dan Savage quote, like it's the reminding people why we're fighting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that even in times of turmoil, there's still going to be marriages and babies born and falling in love and having your friends. And even though if I do something that's like sad and like political in that way, I almost feel like people turn away, but like if you do something that's sad and make them smile through it, they're going to turn their face toward you. And there are reasons there were court jesters, right? And that's why I do what I do, because if I can just for 1 minute take your mind and be there, as like you said, because my body has been politicized, if I can put that in front of you but also spoon feed you a message, I'll do it.
Yeah
And I've tried recently to do more acts that are absurd. Like I have one that I just started doing that's I have a gigantic crocheted phallus that I then purchase a vacuum cleaner for pleasure.
Oh,
and then rip it off
oh
to
dear.
never tear us apart
Oh,
by an excess. Right? It's just absurd. Bodily autonomy, right? Like
yeah, but it makes you think. Makes you think. Uh, uh the well, that's another element too of drag as someone of something of a drag queen, king, and thing sort of trinity, and there's also variations on the theme. A lot of times there is self-imposed, as you mentioned. Your mentor was sort of like, no, we this is how you construct masculinity for the stage. Um, whether it's there's still discussion probably on packing. There's a lot of discussion whether or not one binds versus like what is a man's body versus uh what should again be perpetuating as that and this sort of idea of passing even on especially on stage, frankly. And as a creature figure, you get to, I would assume, get to play with that even that much more. Um,
absolutely.
and yet you manage to be a little bit more soft than some of the more human counterparts. You get to be a little bit more accessible, a little bit genial, a little bit more friendly. Um, how do you find you interact in spaces before and after a show when not on stage? Are you still in a character mode, or how do you work with that?
Generally, before a show, I tend to show up to the gig either in full face or I paint there. There's no
Mhm.
like in between. Um, and I usually have like either some sort of merch on a shirt or a hat. I have a hat that I always wear that says Poundcake. But before the show, it's definitely like I don't want to give it away.
Mm,
Right. So it's very much like I'm still conducting myself as, cordial business. Um, and I always like think the word humility.
mhm,
I'm always like trying to be like ingratiated and taking up as little space as possible.
mhm,
But the second I'm on stage, the entire space is mine.
mhm,
And I believe that of every entertainer. The entire space is yours. That includes the audience lap if you want to. If
mhm,
they consent to it, and if you consent to play, you buying that ticket is a contract you've entered into that
mhm.
you are now part of my world and we're going to explore it together.
Sure.
And you're at no obligation to take my hand, but I will offer it.
Right. You're invited.
Um, right, like you're
Yeah.
totally invited. And um I feel like we don't play as adults enough. So that's, what I try to do. And then, the second that I'm off stage and I'm what I would say definitely an ambivert as a person. I'm very like at home, I'm like here, this is my space and I can go for hours not talking, not interacting with anything. I don't need to, whatever. In public, it's very much a mask of being like jovial and happy to be there to talk to people and interact with people. Um, just because it seems like I've always just been on, you know, and like even if I'm not feeling there, I'm still on because like I can't be damaging to my own brand. I
Mm,
can't um I don't want people to then associate the person I am outside of the performance space as, oh, well, I enjoyed his act, but like he was really off-putting. Like I don't
mhm,
like that as a thought. So it's very much I'm still on. I'm the guy that's like people are either really excited to approach me or no one approaches me and then I just am like that's fine. I'm just gonna quietly sneak off to the dressing room.
mhm,
um and back to a tiny, not taking up too much space. And I think it's probably because of having been wired to be seen as feminine and to be seen as female for such a, for literally half of my life. Um, I kind of operate in that, like, okay, well, I only need to take what I need. I don't need more, and I don't need to step on anyone's toes. I don't need to be like, I'm the guy in the dressing room that, like, I'm apologizing for the fact that I'm taking up the space that I'm in that I was allotted to have.
Yes, I get it. I get it.
It's like, I know I brought a big bag, but I have a big costume, and I'm so sorry, and it'll be out of your way. Like,
I know. Yeah, yeah. Uh, and you sort of feel obligated to say it so that nobody else will, and kind of so that they can then say, no, it's okay. You're giving them the lead to assure you, and that they won't do that unless you illustrate first, because they don't fucking care.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's all, I know, it's all like self-manipulation and um well, when you're doing shows, so do you find yourself in a mixed group of performers? You're doing drag, burlesque, any kind of variety of things in a dressing room, or do you find yourself more in burlesque spaces? I mean, that's a variety of possibility too.
Yeah, I guess, well, it's Ohio, so like mostly it's kind of a 50-50 split. I
Okay.
guess maybe burlesque shows like happen more, like it's more of a structured, like there's going to be a burlesque show here, here, and here on the calendar. And drag
Mhm.
shows are kind of like, oh, hey, there's one here, and oh, there might be one next week, and there's, it's the kind of more pop-up. Um, but intentionally, I have started putting myself more in a burlesque space
Mhm.
just because I feel like the care that I receive from other entertainers and from the audience itself, honestly, is much more forgiving, but also like I don't have to apologize for who I am. And I think this is something I've talked with my partner about quite a lot, is I think it comes from a burlesque space being mostly traditionally a female curated space
Mhm.
versus a drag space that is usually a male curated space.
Sure.
And it's that, well, you have to get in there and take up space. And it's like, okay, but like sometimes I want to be invited. Like,
Yes, 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 yes. Well, because
but
that's nice too. It's also just it's gratifying to be wanted. It's nice to be
yes,
thought of. It is.
yes.
It
And I
certainly,
try to
certainly
do
is.
that for others. So like I'm very much like always in my head about like I will ruminate on an interaction I've had with somebody um for way longer than I should.
Mm.
Um like one time there was it was King Molasses of all people. Um it was at the Emerald City Kings Ball, and he came up, he was greeting people after the first night of the show, and I walked up and said hi to him. He hugged me, and I went to pat his shoulder, and he turned and I patted his chest, and I was like, oh my god, I touched his chest. I can't believe that I touched his chest. Like, oh no. And I kept thinking about it for the whole rest of the night and the next day. And then I saw him the next day, and I walked up to him and I was like, you probably don't remember, but this is what happened, and I just wanted to apologize. And he was like, bro, you're good. I don't even remember that. And like I was just like, okay, that's great. I definitely wasn't worried at all about it. Like,
Well, because we're also being socialized as being deviants by a mainstream, and sort of being told um, that even in queer spaces, the calls are coming from inside the house. So we're on edge. we're on edge about how we're being perceived as well as how everybody else is doing. I absolutely get that. I absolutely get that. And there's to a point, there's a degree of responsibility that all of us, must engage in. Speaking of social contracts. However, there is a bit of once you're involved, once you have identified community, once you've established community and a siblinghood, there are ways that you talk about your siblings than you talk about the outsiders, or even just this colleague that like you're allowed to be a little bit more loose and sitcom-y. And I feel that to be the case. Now, does that sometimes bite you in the ass when someone's having a bad day? Yes, it does. But that's life. And that's also a sitcom. Like that also is that is part of the social contract as well, is that amendments may be given at any point. Yes. Without having to get too specific about it, would you find that, unless you want to, you can be messy if you want to. So much of queer spaces tend to not either be divided or fractured or split or just shattered. Would you say that there are pockets of Ohio burlesque slash nightlife? We'll open it to that. That sort of people engage with their own sort of clubhouses as opposed to one big utopia where everyone gets along?
Oh, absolutely.
That was sort of a leading question, I understand, but yeah.
But yeah, it's the concept, like when I started, the concept of a family was always, well, you have a drag mother and then you have all of her children and the support for each other when everyone in that was cisgender seemed to me like it stopped at the stage. And when it was trans individuals, it was okay, yeah. I will amend that to trans men and folks who were AFAB. And it would be them plus women. And that was a family, and you went to functions together, you took care of each other. And I really noticed that, like, depending on who the family was, and usually depending on race too, like it seemed like in the Black community it was more tight-knit, and that probably has to do with the fact that the calls are coming from inside the house, and we may not have the keys. Like it was just very much some people would get into a mindset of like, well, I earned my dues, so I'm allowed to do whatever I want and treat anyone however I want. And I find it really interesting that most of those people are no longer in the scene. But I'm still here. It's very interesting how that works, and you'll get people with their, they get this like God complex of drag motherhood of, well, I'm the first person that put this person in makeup or put them on stage, so therefore they're automatically my child. And then I'm going to treat them like an actual child. They must do what I say. They must take the bookings that I give them. They must carry my bags and do all of these things, before they can be afforded a $25 booking.
Sure. That also, speaking of, we talked about the toxic masculinity that folks lean into. The toxic parenthood that folks lean into is also a fascinating commentary as well.
Case study.
So this is what you think a mother is. This is what you think a parent is. Interesting. So maybe I'm not the only one who should be in therapy. Maybe somebody else. Well, you also say family as opposed to house, which I know is also a variation of a lot of folks will recognize it either from Paris is Burning or from Pose, or from it somewhat loosely now related to Drag Race, which usually just means they have a name in common or they have
Right.
folks that are sort of related tangentially. But house, I mean, it's a home, sure, but it also has implications of the fashion world as well. So it's not even
Mhm.
related directly to parenthood, childhood, grandchildhood. So I guess that sort of complication as well. Um, would you say that there is a house or family of Poundcake, or that you are you said you have a father figure. Is there a claim or that you take on to sort of indicate to others, oh, I'm from the house of such and such?
So we don't I don't really have a house. I tried to like go with something cutesy that goes with pound cake, and then I was like, but that would be the whole idea of pound cake is that he cannot be contained.
Oh,
He
okay.
can't be contained in a box, right? So I feel like it would be disingenuous for me to try to encapsulate my children into the same kind of mold. So I encourage them to, like, yeah, you can say I'm your dad, like that's fine. Like,
Hmm.
I have one, two, three, four, five. I'm gonna say I have about six drag slash burlesque children.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I just found out the other night that I have like several other grandchildren, and I was like, please, like, like
You don't have to be
uh,
responsible for them. That's okay. That's okay. That was their
right,
choices. They can be
right,
they can
exactly.
be as slutty as they want to be. That does not make it your responsibility.
That's right. And like my partner and I share a couple children.
Oh, so
And
you
it's
you have
just
a partner who's a performer as well, or a civilian?
so I actually have three partners and they all are entertainers. Well, one is retired, but we met on MySpace
Oh,
and and when we met, it was actually really funny. She thought that I was a male stripper and I thought that she was a drag queen. And I was attracted anyway. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then I was like, oh, like you're a cis woman. And she was like, you're a trans guy. And we've been together ever since. So I mean,
right.
it's just. And then my boyfriend is a gender fuck drag queen.
Cool.
Um he always says that he is simply the gender fluid inside of the container and the shape changes.
Depending on the
So
shape. Yes. Mm.
yes. And then my third partner is she honestly does drag and burlesque, but it's I would put her in draglesque, and she's definitely in like the spooky goth
Hmm.
of it all.
Hmm.
Um and it's been really interesting, like being in spaces performing like duets with all three of them, and
Hmm.
like how they're completely different. And um honestly, that's one of the like joys for me, is being able to craft an act that is absolutely ridiculous and then be like, wait, who am I workshopping this with? Like,
Who's right for this? Has there ever been discussion about someone said, "Oh, why didn't you work on that one with me?"
thankfully no, because
Excellent. Everyone
my
knows what makes
boyfriend,
sense for them.
right, well, and my boyfriend does, like, I mean, with a name like Sally Goose, um it's the most ridiculous drag you could imagine. So like we have a Wario and Waluigi act that we do. And it's like cunty Waluigi and and like really gay Dom Daddy Wario. So like it's that whole thing. And then like I have
Mhm.
a Laszlo and Nadia from What We Do in the Shadows act with my girlfriend. So it's like very different,
There you go.
like, and that's encapsulated right there.
Ah, delightfully unproblematic Laszlo. Ah. right, Matthew Barry. Please maintain. You're our last vestige of the IT crack. Please maintain.
Right. A protective barrier around him, please.
Oh, what is your relationship with the music that you choose? We talked a little bit about this in the Black Caucus panel, um, where you didn't necessarily know what music you felt was appropriate for you, but can you get just a little into that and what you relate to?
Yeah. Most of my acts, it's it's really like I like to listen to music that makes me feel, just like everybody else does. But like it's something about a song that like just I'll listen to it and I'm like, I need to take my clothes off to that.
Sure.
And I fall into more of a like a slow burn, sultry type of music. And that falls across any genre.
Mm.
Like recently I'm fixated on Schism by Tool, and I really want that to be in an act, and I haven't like conceptualized it, but like I just see it, you know. But I also have like I just did some Tracy Chapman.
Mm.
Uh I did Justin Bieber the next night. I mean like I really don't have like one thing that I do more often. I do a lot of postmodern jukebox.
Mm.
Just because I like when I think of burlesque, I think of a speakeasy and I think of like forbidden, you're not supposed to know unless you know.
Hmm.
Like I think of that velvet curtains and cigarette holders, like that is where my mind goes. And if I have like a moment to like sneak some Nickelback into there, I will. Um, if it
I
fits,
love it.
I'll put it there. But yeah, I kind of tend to think of an outfit and then put the music to it,
Hmm. Are
if
you
that makes
singing all of
sense.
these, or are you also a lip syncer?
I lip sync when I feel like it, which is not very often. I prefer to do live vocals. If I'm doing two numbers in a show, then I'll tend to do one sing and strip, and then I might strip with a lip sync, but I really prefer to sing when I
Hmm.
do it.
Can you strip
Um,
without lip syncing?
yeah, sometimes I do. It just depends on the song, but I just lip syncing is like I feel like I left it in the dust.
Mm.
The second that I decided I was comfortable, once my voice changed and I was like comfortable, like I actually kind of like lost some vocal ability for about 6 months. I've always had like an issue, and my vocal teacher told me this in college. He was like, you know what's really interesting? And I was like, what? He's like, you hear music in the same way um when I'm teaching like AMAB people. You hear it the same way. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you always hear it like it's higher than it should be.
Is
And
that
I'm like,
common
he
for?
said it's pretty common.
Mm,
And I
okay.
was like, okay, that's another thing. And that
Mm.
was another feather in the cap of like, hey, there's something about you that you should know. Like, but yeah, once my voice dropped and um I was doing a one-man show at the time. Um and I was trying to come up with a wide range of songs, and I was really trying to like push myself, and I had this like fear for some reason of singing something that was too high, quote quote, that made me sound feminine. And so I would like my voice would crack, or I'd be like, oh, I can't do that, and I don't know what it was that like knocked it out of me, but once that happened and I felt like more confident, it was like the sky's the limit and I don't want to stop singing. And yeah, and I'm also somebody that, like, when I sing, I don't like to emulate the artist that did it. I like, and I mean, unless it's Creed, and then of course you have to, or like Pearl Jam, you have to.
That's how they're written. That's how they're written. Yeah.
Right. It's literally written like those letters are wiggly. Like but yeah, once I like broke whatever seal that was, now it's like if I can't find a male cover, I'll just make my own.
How do you construct that? Do you get like an instrumental, or do you
Usually an instrumental, like a karaoke track, or
and then transpose it supposedly, or
usually I just try to find one that's like lower key or like which is not easy. Or I will just sing it down an octave if it's because that sometimes like would lend a darker um tone to something. Like I do Toxic by Britney Spears. I do the postmodern jukebox version, and I sing it an octave lower, and that automatically makes it a more sinister sound.
That's that cinematic movie trailer pop cover.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what I'm all about. Like I'm really into that lately.
I forget what that's called when you in a minor key. I guess that's what it is. When it's basically a lower it's not the driving key. When you reduce it, doesn't it change? It changes the tempo or what have you, and therefore it puts it in a more sinister, as you put it, context.
Yeah, like there's a version of, oh, now I can't think of the song, of course. But there are several like different iterations of what's the song? Hold on. Hey, wait.
Oh, Viktor Devonne?
Or Heart-Shaped Box. Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, there's a minor key version of that makes it sound so sinister, and like he's literally singing it like she eyes me like a Pisces, like it's real low, and it scratches a part of my brain that like I'm on stage and like no one else is there, they're gone, and it just makes me feel like I'm in a recording studio by myself. And I'm pouring everything into this, and like it always reflects in my photos too because my eyes are closed, and I'm like, great,
you perform like a rock
my
star. Yeah,
like that's wonderful.
That's that sort of rock star technique, isn't it?
Like, right, and then I'm like, oh, but my eyes are closed and now you can't see my contacts that I intentionally put in.
But
two
we
different
get the
contacts
eyeshadow
all the time. That's part of the brand.
I sometimes feel that because
right?
I'm like, well, you lose the lid. So like it's sort of it's a complication. That's why everything needs to be a GIF or a boomerang.
Yeah, I just want you to see the lid. That's what I just want you to take in all of the makeup. That's what it is.
Hey, this is Viktor Devonne, and I would really like to thank the Patreon people. So thank you, Patreon people. You make my dreams come true. Stormageddon, Bo, Alex, Joyce, Sebastian, Oliver, Curly Bright, Shini, Tiffany, Faye, Oxy, Goosey Gander, Luna, Charlotte, Dottie, Clara, and Jacourtney. Goodness gracious. Thank you so much. I don't know, frankly, what else to do with the Patreon, so if you tell me things that you would like to see on it, whether it's just me talking, if it's some exclusives, if it's chatter of some variety, I would be absolutely delighted to contend with that. It just needs to be digested. So you can find me at WEBurlesque@gmail.com, and you can let me know, or you can comment on the Patreon itself. Y'all are great, and I love you. And thanks for spending money on me.
Are you something of a stage bisexual as well, where everyone is fair game when you're speaking to them as well, where or does your drag persona have inclinations?
Oh, Poundcake doesn't care.
Poundcake
I
is
also don't
ready to
care,
go.
so there's
Sure,
that.
sure.
It's easy to slip right into it when that's just who you are, right?
Not necessarily. There are some people who make that dividing line, which I
Yeah.
find really interesting. And also, I know a lot of bisexual burlesquers who are cis women who only flirt with women in burlesque circumstances. They only go to the women in the audience because that's just their vibe, and they don't really want to fuck with the guys in the audience.
Right.
And then there are a number of gay burlesquers out there, burlesque guys out there who just want to fuck with the guys in the audience. So even though ostensibly they are omnisexual on stage,
Right. Poundcake himself is, I've noticed the way that ever since I started painting a clown face, the way that cisgender men, that most of them either identify themselves as straight, or I'm assuming that they are, just based on the vibes they're giving me, right?
sure.
The way that they interact with me is different now. And I don't know if putting on the clown face has given them license to think of me differently, which I guess
I've been
whatever
there.
you need to tell yourself,
Sure.
But yeah, like I personally, I tend to have two camps of just general audience members. Like that doesn't include anyone who's like actually in the biz and is in the audience.
Mhm.
It's either very very thirsty either way, but it's either women who are bisexual, and they usually tell me about it,
Mhm.
and they're with their boyfriend, or men that are straight but now they're having gay panic and they're there with their wives.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's some sort of gap that I'm filling for them, and I will take it, because you know what?
Sure.
We all need our gaps filled here and there. Who am I?
Well, it's sort of like the charm that the cabaret MC is given license for.
Yes.
Certainly to a degree, Frankenfurter is something of a pass, a hall pass to a degree.
Yep.
Tim Curry
Yep.
just has that effect on people.
Yep.
And or it's very often like the sort of like the leading player identity as well. I
Yes.
feel like even in Pippin, you can if Ben Vereen is still down, DTF, the whole show,
Yes.
you know? So I feel like that is a tradition in theater, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore it's just another variant on leaning into that because it's not that it's non-threatening because there are absolutely ways to declaw homosexuality and make it,
Yes.
palatable for the masses. But there's just enough danger, I think, to
There's something
allow.
about it. Yes.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
like something about letting someone get close enough to you that like they could stroke you with their claw, or they could
yeah.
embed it. And you may not know which one's going to happen, and that's exciting.
Right. Well, you're engaging in the monster fuckery of it all too, because you have a
That's
pass
it.
as an otherworldly creature as well.
Yep.
It's not gay if you have horns.
Exactly. And
When it
that's the
actually
other
is
thing,
kind of
like,
gayer when you have
yeah,
horns.
exactly. It's much gayer, but whatever you need to tell yourself. Um, like even the characters I choose because I do cosplay too. So like
Yeah, I've seen you as
I
Bowser.
always yes, I always choose a villain. Like I'm always like, like Bowser
Or
can do
Beetlejuice,
whatever
yes,
he
too.
wants.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice can do
Can
whatever he
also do whatever he
wants.
wants. These little
And
imps, these little imps.
yes, and I feel like sometimes I've kind of like I'm like, oh, have I painted myself in a corner? And then I'll come up with an act that like kind of like takes that and goes, well, no, see, here's the soft. Like I also do a
Mm,
Swedish chef. So it's like,
yes.
oh, okay, he's nice. He wouldn't hurt anyone. Or would he? Ask
Well,
the chickens. You know, it's very
exactly.
much
He still has a cleaver. You gotta watch. You gotta watch. And I've never seen his
uh-huh.
eyes. I don't know where
Exactly.
he's looking when he's just flailing. So you
Neither does he, so it's perfect.
exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. And like, yeah, the creature part of it, like being I've always been someone that like in my life, I've always been told who I am, right? So
Mm,
like my therapist once said that my worldview was somehow backwards, and that was refreshing and also frightening because she asked me to explain like gender growing up and whatnot and you know explain like thoughts I might have had. And I said, well, you know, I when I grew up, the word tomboy was always a thing.
sure.
Um, I played softball. I played competitive softball for 3 different leagues. So like that's how deep in the weeds I was.
Hmm.
And I can remember having like a hyper femme where I tried to like force myself into that
Hmm.
box. And I remember being upset. I was at a county fair and this guy I was getting like a snack at a truck and he said, "Here you go, my man." And I was so mad because he didn't even notice my boobs that I have, that I definitely have, that I did not have. But I sure thought that, oh, well, the suggestion of my tiny little child body, he would, you know, and I said to
Take
my
the hint.
therapist, she's like, she was like, so how did that make you feel? And I said, well, I mean, I thought, well, all girls must feel this way because you've said that I'm a girl and I feel this way. So then, therefore, all
Therefore, that's
girls
how girls
feel
feel.
like
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
she was like, no, baby. Normally, it's you think you're alone. and and that's how it, but somehow you ended up here anyway. So I guess you took the long way around. You took the scenic route, and that's
Right.
okay.
So it wasn't that you were thinking I'm not like other girls. You're thinking, why isn't this guy behaving the way that
Yes.
he's
I was like,
supposed
well,
to?
I'm giving you all, I'm playing by your rules.
Mm, see, that was your first mistake. That's
Yep, playing by his rules. Yep, that's it.
Do you
But
have
yeah.
things in development now that you're working on that you can dish on?
So I'm currently working on, I have a show, let's see, what's the date? The date is the 7th. Oh, okay. So this weekend, well, it'll be the weekend past when this comes out.
Okay.
Um, it's a show called Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be doing my Mojo Jojo act, and then I'm working on, if I get it done in time, the Ice King from Adventure Time.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of
So
dandies and
yeah.
and faggy icons, yes, indeed.
Yes. Yes. So that'll be the latest in my arsenal. And then I'm also working
Mojo Jojo
on
is the Powerpuff Girl character, right?
yes.
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 Okay.
And he's also he's one of my favorites for sure. And honestly, I believe that is the only act that I actually have tattooed on me. No, that's not true. I have Jack Skellington too. So I have two acts that I do that I have had the tattoos of them preceding the act. But
Right.
I just thought to myself, everybody does him, who is also the monster fucker scariness, but like
Yes.
he's got that
The
scary
devil in kinky
like
boots. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
yes, but like he's also like, you know what? Yeah, he could take me out for dinner. Like
Where would you go?
I'm a simple man with simple needs. You know, like a Taco Bell will be just
Will
fine.
suffice. You mentioned Jack Skellington, and I have to tell you, as someone who paints their face white, Jack has been on the list, but I could never get past the fact that I am not a spindly gentleman. And as another non-spindly gentleman, how did you just pass that? Did you just say, fuck it, this is the character I want to play?
So, and that's the other thing too. If you notice, the characters we've mentioned are all portly in some way or another, right?
Yeah,
Like Bowser is a big fat
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Wario is a big fat guy. Um, I literally have been obsessed with Jack Skellington since the very first time I saw his face in the book.
Mm,
And I've always been, I know he's problematic and terrible, and I do not like Tim Burton as a person, and you can
sure.
put me on record for that.
Okay.
But Jack has always, it's the very first time I heard Jack's lament, I was crying.
Mm,
And that came out when I was a little kid. And I wasn't just crying, and I've realized for the years, through the years, that I wasn't just crying because of how Jack felt. I was crying because I identified that feeling. He literally says this, it's deep inside my bones. It calls out for something unknown, right?
mhm.
So like, how did my soul know, right? And I'm sure you connect with that.
Mhm.
Like, you know what it feels like to have this yearning, like the gay yearning, the queer yearning,
Mm.
the everything yearning, right? And that is not Jack was Jack is a skeleton, right?
Mhm.
What do skeletons live inside? A
Bodies.
body.
Yeah.
He could have been a
Both
fat
live
person for
inside
all we
and yet
knew.
are part of. Yeah. Yeah.
So like, he doesn't have to be spindly just because Tim Burton drew him that way. Tim Burton was drawing a skeleton.
Sure.
And we don't think of bones as being fat, right?
It's true.
But like, I'm also not tall, you know? So like,
Uh,
just the thought that I can be whoever the fuck I want to be.
mm.
And if your problem is that I'm not spindly, I'm also not just bones.
No, oh well. Yes. Yes.
So I say to you, Victor, I want to see a Jack Skellington act from you, and you better do it, and you better
Okay.
be happy, and you better think of me the whole time.
Oh. Yeah. It's it just we paint ourselves into corners, certainly. And some of the reasons is because sometimes the calls are not coming from inside the house. Sometimes the calls are really just really loud from next door. And um I as a hobo clown creature, or being, not creature, I'm a being. Um that still has something of a whimsical otherworldly nature, but I'm still a human figure. Um there is there are lines that when I say, oh well, that's not really that I don't know how to see myself into that. And I can understand why when some people are I'm a Tori Amos fan, and she was talking about how, and she's a fabulous musician who is capable of doing really fantastic transformations of covers. But when she was doing Strange Little Girls, there were certain songs that she said she couldn't find her way into. And I found that to be a really profound way of looking at it, but also self-limiting. And there are probably choices that she made that were perfectly good, like good. Don't. I'm glad she didn't go there, but because she had this concept of doing songs for that album specifically about that were written by men about women, essentially. So if she couldn't find out how that song worked for her with that construct, well, then she was already self-defeating. She wasn't going to be able to do that. And we as performers, we create sort of this persona either along the way or we start off knowing everything with our character sheet and having all of the numbers filled in, and we can't change those numbers as we go, despite the fact that that's not how character sheets work.
Right. It's with a pencil for a reason.
But we scratched that itch that you referred to by hitting a lot of the things that we weren't able to do, or that we're only allowed to do on Halloween, or that we were not socialized to find appropriate for ourselves, or that or that we did, but now we get to do it on a different level or different scale. And then somewhere along the way, there's this outlier act or this outlier performance, and we're asked to do something, and we're like, does that make sense with how that goes? And very often, as it was in cases such as me, it's a hit. And it becomes something of a thing that you're known for. Is there something that is so outside of the Poundcake multiverse that still is Poundcake, but that you didn't expect to have resonation because it wasn't what you expected? Or is that still to come? Because it'll happen.
That's true. I think trying to think of like all because I like honestly I have specific characters and specific acts, but most of my acts is just as Poundcake, so I don't really have but
is there a Poundcake as Poundcake that you didn't necessarily assume that would resonate with others?
I think honestly, I think I would have to say at first it was Mojo Jojo. Because, it's a very specific face. It's a green face. He's a monkey. He's a
monkey.
He's not at all what I
He's
normally
a tiny
do.
little thing. He's a tiny little thing.
He is, and that was the in. That was the in for me. Because it was like, oh, he's really small, and like he was the one that like the professor kind of pushed aside when the girls came around. So like he's very misunderstood, and that's also a Poundcake thing. So like when I really found those little pieces I could chip away to like pull into it, and then once I like started doing the act, like people were coming up to me and saying like, this was brilliant, like this was such a good choice for you, because they think of me as a cartoon character jumping off the page. And I think I had to like change how I was perceiving it. Actually, you know what? I will say, now that I think about it, the one character, it's not even necessarily Mojo. It's Buzz Lightyear.
I would not have imagined you as a Buzz Lightyear necessarily.
and I do. I just started doing it out of nowhere. I sing Fly Me to the Moon because of course.
Naturally.
Right. And it's a non-stripping act. It's just me as Buzz Lightyear, and it's such minimal makeup because like putting on my own skin tone is so weird to me that it's like I'm doing that and I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm not doing drag because I'm not wearing any makeup. And then I'm like, but that's where you started. We've come full circle.
We've been there already. We've been through that. Is there Okay, so sorry, you were saying. Go ahead.
Just he, if anything, feels like And also he's a hero character. So like
True. He's kind of a dick
yes,
too.
yes. And like so he's not he's also not a bearded character, and that's something that I do with my characters is like they're gonna have a beard because I'm not
Sure.
shaving.
Uh-huh.
But he's supposed to be like that all-American boy next door, blah 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 bullshit.
But he's the outsider. He
But
still
he's
is
the
the
outsider.
he's the only one who doesn't know. I mean, initially, the lore
Yeah.
obviously is thick, but
Oh, I hope that we don't spoil Toy Story for anyone.
listen. But no, but that he's sort of he's not the protagonist for one thing. We're supposed to see through Woody's eyes for that film,
Yep.
and we're supposed to identify with Woody until Woody goes too far. And then we're like,
Right.
oh shit. Now you identify with that, or you choose not to, and you miss the point. I have a lot of feelings about anti-heroes, and I have a lot of feelings about protagonists.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
I have a lot of feelings whenever I saw it was like, oh, I hate that person because they did some. It's like that's what they were for. Like that's what they were
Right.
for, and you need that, and that's why they're the lead. And this happens a lot of shows where a female lead often is the lead's favorite character in a show because she's the one who has to go through the lesson learning. And I'm like, because she's us, guys. Because
Yep. And you don't like yourself is what you're telling me.
basically. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, you went through all of this. Like, there you go. Let's identify. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I like that. I like the deconstructing of that personally. As someone who does paint their face a different shade than they are, does that have different implications to you because you are a black man? And while you are lighter skinned, you are technically going clown white. You're not doing, and not that whiteface is a thing, but you are going in that direction in a creature way, as opposed to a I'm playing a white guy kind of way. But is there anything to deconstruct there that you're like, let's just why that? Why go lighter than darker, besides the complications of that, even?
Right. Well, because it's so strange, but like so I was raised by my grandparents on my mother's side, who are the white people of my family, and they were very racist. And so for me, it was always like commentary about how wide my nose is, or how big my lips are, or just picking apart any features that are not Eurocentric. Or like my hair was always a problem when I had hair.
Well, I'm assuming the beard, was that a similar texture?
Yes. So yeah, I had very coily, hard to manage from a white person who has no idea standpoint hair. But like the more I think about like missing my hair, like I really do miss it sometimes because it's like, it's so ingrained in black culture, that like that the crown act, it's the crown act, for hair, and I feel like disconnected sometimes because I don't have that anymore. Like I don't have my natural crown. And so like, that's
You do, it's just lower
with
and upside down.
yes, it slid. Um I was just talking with another black entertainer about this. Well, they paint their face blue, but we were saying, why do we feel blacker when we've painted our faces this way? And they said, well, it's for me, and I agree, it's because now I'm looking at my features. I'm looking myself in the face of a blank slate. There is no color, but I am looking at my specific features. And um it's honestly made me feel like more in tune, oddly enough. But like and that's the thing too, like I give myself license to, play with color. And um when doing when I first started dabbling in makeup, I was doing like my own flesh tone, and I would use white as like the cartoony highlights and whatnot. And then I realized like, oh wait, if I'm painting my face white, I can't do that anymore. So I just started adding more black lines here and there, and it's honestly made it, I feel like I'm able to, the history of clownery is black. Like when you think about it, like
particularly American
what
clownery,
was,
yeah.
yes, American clownery, yes. And I think that is like my way of connecting, like putting out a thread into the universe and connecting to the tapestry of life. That I'm able to take all of the absurdity of the world and turn it in on itself, and just like step out and unapologetically be like, okay, so I want you to see me, and I want you to see me at my core. And I feel like when I do that with like the white face, it's like people are able to connect to me in some way, and I don't know why, but I don't know, like it just, I feel more me, I feel more free, and I feel like the rules don't apply in a lot of ways where they might apply harder if I look a certain way. Um so
Might be
I
more of
don't
a
like
accidental statement if you looked a certain way. Maybe like that's another thing is perception as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm at at the same time putting a spotlight and also taking that pressure off of like, just look at me, just look at me and see what you see, feel what you feel, and you don't have to like, you don't have to put any implications that you already had on it. You're just looking at a clown,
Which has its
and
own implications frequently as
has its
well.
own implications.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Particularly
that's
since the 80s.
right. Yeah, and I never I try never to be like a scary clown. Um Although being a clown itself is scary to people. I was very terrified of clowns as a little kid. And it's also like a way of like taking that back for myself. Um and giving myself like the freedom again to play, and it's just very it's just so interesting, like watching how people react, because sometimes it's the clown face, sometimes it's spooky contacts, like, oh, I don't like that you have one white eye, and it's like, well, why don't you like it?
Because it's not usual. It's
right.
Well, that's one of the reasons that, and I've talked about this frequently. I talk about it in my character class as well. The reason that Tim Curry and Poltergeist and to what all the way to heavy metal works as clowns and killer clowns from outer space is because we're subverting what are supposed to be signs of innocence. It's not what they look like, it's that they aren't behaving the way that they're quote supposed to. And there's a reason that scary clowns is not really a concept before the 80s and 70s to a degree. There's no Twilight Zone where there's a clown that's scary. There's no Lovecraft. There's no Hitchcock. They weren't meant to be that. There are times where they might be unsettling to some degree because they are still, committed to the art and storytelling, or they may represent certain things. But they weren't horror figures, and they're still not meant to be horror figures, which is why they are effective as horror figures. And also depending on what kind of clown you are, there's a difference, I feel, between a mime and even Terrifier. Or
100%.
Yeah, I mean, but Beetlejuice is a clown.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also it's a gait as well. It's a mentality. It's a
Yeah, you just like unlocked a thought for me too. You said it's about like they're not behaving the way that you would think. And I think another reason why I like doing the white face is because every expression is that much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can get a bigger reaction from someone by doing less work.
It allows for subtlety. It really does. I have to say, I mean, there's a lot of power, and I know this is an audio platform, folks. You're not going to know what I'm doing, but doing something and going just that little open mouth, like, hey, there's something that puts an audience at ease to a certain degree. Again, it's sort of that inviting and bringing them in and sort of, yeah.
It's a
And
way
yet
to
being a
like,
little dangerous, being a little dangerous.
yes, and it's a way of like lifting your mask without lifting your mask. Like that little is very like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to be scared by this.
Right.
I'm supposed to realize what you are underneath. And
It's ridiculous. Let's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Yeah. Like, don't be silly. Why would I do that? It's very
It is, and that also brings in the sort of pansy and sort of brings in the sort of, permission to know, like, don't be threatened. It's like when the sort of like when you surround, I don't know if you find this, but when I surround myself with a bunch of women to make myself as less threatening as possible, I allow myself to be as queer, gay, and faggy as possible. Yep. It's totally free reign because we're just a bunch of girls, aren't we?
Right. Like I'm definitely and I work in my normie job is in a field that's dominated by women, so it's very much I want to be as non-threatening as possible, but I also want to drive home that like this is how it could be. All of my relationships with cisgender men, especially straight ones, are, listen, you're coming to this vulnerable. I do not accept. You have to have some sort of vulnerability to get that close to me, because I feel it is my duty to not separate myself from other men. Like, I'm not trying to be a manic pixie dream boy, not like other boys. Like you said earlier, it's my responsibility and my honor and privilege to be in those spaces to say, okay, but why is it that way? And to pull that from other men, because like, and I've had friends that have like gone from, oh, I'm not emotional, to now we hug every time we see each other. And it's like, I can see, I'm encouraging them to peel off that hard outer shell, and like show us your humanity.
You've become other people's side quests to realize this. You've gone full. Yeah. Which of course is sort of the magical queer trope, but here we are. Listen, there's a little Tu Wong Fu in all of us.
Right? Like, oh, little Latin boy in drag, why are you crying? Like, well, how long have you got?
Thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing fairly some intimate details. I appreciate your candor. I find you a delight. I really, really do. I've really enjoyed working with you the last couple of years in Ohio when I've hosted the Ohio Burlesque Festival. Whether or not we've been able to share spaces together on the stage, I've been always happy to share those spaces with you and get to know you better. I have on good authority that I'll be in the area again next year or this upcoming. Yeah, I have good authority on that. But can you tell the folks before I let you go the ways that they can keep in touch with your goings on.
Yes, they can find me on Instagram. It is yo_king_poundcake.
As a court jester turned king turned creature of the night, is there a future thing that you're striving for? I'm sure if you get asked about Dracula, I'm sure you do. As an alt performer who paints their face, I'm sure. I'm not suggesting necessarily that that's in your wheelhouse or vibe, because that sounds like I don't know. Personally, I don't want to eat bugs while I'm performing. That's just my vibe. Um, but is there something that you would love to do again in the Pound Cake universe, that you're striving for?
Honestly, I would just like to open for like an international act of some sort.
Mm.
Like, I think it would be really fun if, one of the I'll put this into the universe, if,
Yes,
one of the
let's
drag race
manifest.
girlies or a comedian or someone big in the queer scene were coming around on tour and wanted an opening act. That would be what I would strive for. I'm not I don't like boxes at all, and I feel like being on television would force me into a box in so many ways.
Mhm.
And also a television is a box. So there's that. So none of that for me. But I like to be a cautionary tale. Um, I like to be the big scary queer that they warned you about, that is spoken about in dark rooms and back alleys, and I like to be known by people in the same way. So
Mhm. Very nice. Well, I see that for you. And it's interesting. It shows a great deal of, I'll say, humility as well, to suggest that you would be an opening act, as that is um a facilitator in a lot of different ways. You're sort of wetting the whistles of the folks in the audience for the main event or what have you. But it also allows you to pull focus, and I appreciate that. I find
just a little. And then I'll go in the audience and cheer for them.
right. Yes. See, that's the thing. I've always said that one of my dream roles is Herod in Jesus Christ Superstar, because he does nothing for Act One. He has one major scene in Act Two, and he bows fifth to last minimum. That's what
Yep.
I live for. That shit right there.
Well, if that happens, you tell me and I will try to hop on a plane so I can come see it, because that would eat.
The closest I've gotten to it is I've done King Herod's song as Emperor Palpatine. That is the closest that I have gotten. And I have replaced every usage of the word superstar with young Skywalker. Yeah. I'll email you the video.
Yes, please, because I have just died and
well, Poundcake, thank you so much for spending time with me. You are a delight. I really do enjoy spending time with you, and I look forward to doing so again. I'd love to get to Ohio socially as well, or outside of the festival circuit, as there are a number of people, the Camerons, who I love very much. There's a lot of folks, Shrimp, who I love very much, Heather, obviously, Bella, all these folks that I get to see once a year. Like, why save it? Why not spread it around? So hopefully one day I'll find my way in your neck of the woods.
Please, I adore you.
Oh, my darling.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Folks at home, thank you for listening. Follow the people, go to the footnotes, and be safe out there. It's scary.
We Burlesque the podcast, created, developed, and edited by Viktor Devonne. Podcast artwork by Logan Laveau. We Burlesque the podcast cover art photography by Atticus Stevenson. Theme song, On a 45 by This Way to the Egress, used with permission. All incidental music via Pixabay under the expectation of fair use. Please visit WeBurlesquePodcast.com for notes on this and every other episode. Follow WeBurlesque and Viktor Devonne on just about every platform, and support the podcast via patreon.com/WeBurlesque. Don't got the cash? Please follow, subscribe, and give 5 stars on every platform you can get your hands on. It really does help. All original material is owned by Viktor Devonne and White Elephant Burlesque Corporation. All other materials property of their respective copyright. No infringement, while likely, is intended. This episode, and all episodes thereafter, are in memory of Lucky Charming. Miss you, friend. And that's it.
Woohoo!